Hello everyone, in today's video we would be looking at the game played between Magnus Carlsen versus Dubov Daniil from the FIDE World Rapid and Blitz Team Championship 2024. We have Rapid Tournament and a Blitz Tournament, and the game we are going to discuss is from the Rapid Tournament, the round number 5. Magnus is playing with the white pieces and Dubov is playing with the black pieces. I don't want to waste any further time, so let's start. So Magnus with the white pieces starts the game with 1 e4. Dubov plays e5, like 99% of the players who are at the most basic level likes to play the move e5 because you are basically covering the center. Knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. So we have the royal pace opening. You can also play bishop c4. We have the Italian game, and Wesley So has already made a course in it, which is very instructive. So we have bishop to b5, a6, bishop a4, knight to f6. All pretty standard theory. d3 by Magnus now, defending the e4 pawn. b5, bishop to b3, and now we have the move bishop to c5, developing the bishop, and the idea is to simply short castle. c3. So the idea of c3 here is there are basically two ideas. First, knight a5 can be met with bishop c2, keeping the bishop pair, and second, c3 allows white to play the move d4 in the future, having a nice center. So we have the move d6 by black, trying to open up the light square bishop, short castle. We have rook to b8. So Dubov Daniil for now is not really committing short castle, which is absolutely fine move, but we have rook b8 instead. So the idea of rook b8, I believe, is to simply expand on the queen side. Knight to d2, developing the knight, short castle, rook to e1. So now white's usual idea is to put the d2 knight to g3 to maybe f5 to somehow kind of launch an attack on the king side. So we have the move knight to e7 by Dubov. So I guess his idea is also the same as white, as the knight on c6 is not doing much because of the c3 pawn, as the d4 and the b4 square are already covered. It's better for black to remaneuver the knight. So we have knight to g6, and finally we have the move h3 by Magnus, trying to restrict the bishop from coming on g4 and also making some space for the king. Bishop to b6 by Dubov. So all pretty standard and logical moves by Dubov Daniil. His idea is to expand on the queen side by playing the move c5. a4, and now we have h6. First, taking note of bishop g5 by playing h6. a5, bishop a7, d4, and now we have the move c5 by Dubov. He's like, if you want to capture the pawn, I don't really care because all the pawns are really protected by the black pieces, so nothing is happening. So we have the move knight to g3 by Magnus, not really pushing up the pawn, but like keeping the maximum flexibility. Knight g3, c4 by Dubov now. Bishop to c2. If you play bishop a2, it's somehow staring at the c4 pawn, which doesn't really make any sense. And black at the same time can go for capturing the pawn. So bishop c2 is the only move. And now we have b4 by Dubov, a very logical move and a good practical move, I would say. b4 idea is pretty simple. Black wants to use this open rook file by pushing up the pawn, removing the pawns from the b file, and trying to use this powerful rook from b8. In the game we had rook a4. The best would have been to take queen d2 attacking the rook, queen c3 protecting the b2 pawn. So what is happening basically, black is having the weak c4 pawn, and at the same time white is also having the weak b2 pawn. Black can play queen c7 defending the c4 pawn, bishop e3, bishop d7, and this position is fine for black because black can play rook b8 and black is pretty comfortable. So that's why we have rook a4, but now b3 by black, bishop to b1. So black has maximized his expansion on the queen side. So after bishop to b1, we have queen to c7, defending the c4 pawn, queen to e2, attacking the pawn again, and now we have bishop e6 by Dubov, protecting the c4 pawn. And now Magnus simply pushed the pawn, attacking the bishop fell back, attacking the rook. And now white went for capturing the pawn with the rook. You can't really go for capturing the pawn with the queen because it's already a mistake or a blunder, as there is a very strong move bishop c5. What's happening? if you do, like the rook is hanging, so if you try to move your rook, bishop into f2 gives a check and you lose the queen. So, and if you don't really move the rook, you are simply going to lose the rook. So this is exactly why queen into c4 is a blunder. So in the game we have rook into c4 and now queen into a5. So basically black gave up the c4 pawn for the a5 pawn. So knight to f5, and now the knight looks pretty strong on f5, attacking the d6 and covering the e7 square. So black simply removed the knight, and now white is having the bishop pair. Knight to f4, bishop f4 takes, and now we have to move rook to f1. So why rook f1? First of all, if you go for capturing the f4 pawn, the whole idea of black is to play rook e8, attacking the queen, and now just queen a1. The whole idea is to get inside the white's camp and attack the weak b2 and the bishop on b1. And this position is already very comfortable for black, as you already cannot capture because black would be having an open e-file, open bishop, strong knight, activated queen, and black is already winning. So that's why rook into f4 is already a mistake. So we have rook f1. For now, rook e8 is not going to lead into a rook trade. So now we have rook e8, queen to d2, and now we have queen into d5 by Dubov. Dubov should have played knight into d5, which is a bit more accurate because something like rook d1 attacking the knight is already met with knight to e3. The whole idea is to attack the, like basically both the rooks are hanging now, and after takes, bishop into e3, you will realize that the queen is gone and black is having a completely winning position. So that's the whole reason knight into d5 is a much stronger move. Queen d5 allowed Magnus to trade off the queen, releasing some pressure, and now we have rook d1 and now rook e2, a brilliant move found by Dubov. He gave up a full piece for exchange of bishop into f2, rook into b2 for 2 pawns, because now black is having a strong pawn on b3. So first white have to defend it, the bishop e3, rook to c6 attacking the pawn, a5, so black's only hopes are the pawn on a5 and the pawn on b3. Rook into d6, and now we have the move rook to c2 by black. A much more accurate move would have been a4, and after rook a6, rook c2 is now much more accurate. Obviously, you cannot capture the rook because like you cannot come to c1, and after rook e1, rook b1 is already game over. I'm not even going to make the queen, but first trade off the rook, make a free queen and win the game. So that's the whole idea. You can't really go for capturing the rook. And after rook c2, basically white have to capture, takes, and this position is at least fine for black despite being a piece down, because the b3 pawn is already very strong and the position is roundabout even. But rook c2 allowed Magnus to play rook to d8 check, which was not found by Magnus Carlsen, as both the players were already in time trouble with seconds on their clock. In the game we had knight to e5, but the best move was to give a check, trade off the rook, and now play a very strong move, which is f6. What is the idea? Basically, now the rook is kind of paralyzed on c2 because there would be a check. So black have to play g6, but now simply king h2, moving away from checks. And after rook c1, just bishop e4, pawn push, rook b8, and you will realize the pawn is dead on b2 and white is having a completely winning position with the piece up advantage. So that's why this would have been the best for Magnus, a winning position. But he played knight to e5, which gave Dubov some chances with rook f8, c4, and now he made the final blunder with rook to e2. Dubov should have played a4, a very strong move, pushing up the pawn. The whole idea here is rook a6 can be met with rook to d8, rook to e8, counter attacking the knight. And if you try to move your knight, already rook to d8, you will realize now rook into d3 is a big threat. And after rook a4 takes, check, check, check. First covering the b4 square, which is a pretty deep idea. And now capturing the bishop, and black is actually winning as rook b4 is stopped, and the bishop is actually pretty powerful. And with the combination of b3 pawn and the bishop and the rook, black is winning the game. And you will realize the king is also kind of trapped on h2. So this would have been the best, but rook e2 was the final mistake as it allows knight to f3. So Dubov's idea of playing rook e2 was to play bishop to c5, somehow double attacking the knight and the rook, but simply move the knight. Bishop c5, rook a6, now capturing the pawn. So bishop b4, defending the pawn. White's idea is pretty simple now, to just push the pawn. If you take, white's happy to take, and the pawn is not going anywhere, and white is complete piece up. So rook c8 was played, but now simply again c6. King h2 first, clearing out from the any checks. So rook e7 now, rook d3 attacking the pawn, rook to c7, and first Magnus defended the pawn, b2, now we have rook to b6. And in the game we had king e7. I think a much more accurate move would have been f6, attacking the knight, removing the protection, and after check, king e8, rook b3, takes. This would have been the best that black could have achieved. Still white is winning because white is a complete piece up, but still this would have been the best for black. But king e7 is just complete game over after rook d7 check. You obviously cannot take, it's completely winning for white. So king f6, check, rook b5, the idea is to give check with f6. So bishop e8, e1, check, knight to e5 with the threat of knight f3 check. Black gave a check, but now just trading off the rooks. Rook c7, rook to b7, taking the pawn. Rook to h7 with the threat of mate in 1. So we have g4. If you get back with the queen, it's still a mate. So that's why we have g4, but still check. And knight to f7 is a checkmate on the 56th move. So yeah, this was a very exciting game played by Magnus Carlsen versus Dubov Daniil from the round 5 of the World Rapid and Blitz Team Championship 2024. So yeah, I would say it was a very knowledgeable game. If your purpose is to learn from chess, try to understand the logic of each and every move. What's the idea? What is happening in the top player's mind whenever they are playing any game of chess? So I think you can analyze any particular game. Like, it doesn't matter if you're playing that opening or not. What matters is the middle game, because the idea that players come up with on their own on the board is just interesting, and this is the best way you can help yourself to improve your game in chess. So if you learned anything new from this video, make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Oneshot Chess.